Prior to the 2024 offseason, the OKC Thunder's biggest free agent signings were either Patrick Patterson, Nerlens Noel, or Mike Muscala, all of whom signed with the Thunder for a combined amount of just $24.4 million. So before the season started, when the Thunder landed free agent big man Isaiah Hartenstein on a massive salary worth $29 million per year on average, it was reasonable that there were gonna be a ton of expectations for Hartenstein to be a game changer for the Thunder. And those expectations were even more magnified when Chet Holmgren went down to injury just a couple weeks ago. Well, Holmgren has been playing really well before he got hurt. The Thunder's overall net rating was more than 8 points better per 100 possessions with Holmgren on the floor than with him on the bench, which was the second highest net difference produced by any Thunder player before his injury. But then, with the Thunder's tallest player and main defensive anchor expected to be out for a couple more months, the main concern here was how OKC was going to maintain their league-leading defense and how they were going to hold their own on the rebounding department, which wasn't a strong point for them to begin with. But since Hartenstein has returned from his own injury over the 3 games he's played so far, the numbers correlate to how his arrival has helped the Thunder hold up in those areas. Looking at it, during the first 9 games of the season with Chet Holmgren healthy, the Thunder held a 97.3 defensive rating, which was clear-cut the best in the NBA within that span of time. But during the 5.5 games OKC played after Chet's injury without them having a true big man on the floor, their defensive rating dropped to just 13th best in the entire NBA. However, since the arrival of Hartenstein, their defensive rating has been up to number 4 within that span of time, again inching closer to the top of the league. The more drastic change, though, could be seen on the rebounding end. Before Chet Holmgren got hurt, the Thunder had the 3rd worst rebounding rate in the entire league. Then, during the 5.5 games they didn't have a true big man, it even dropped to the 2nd worst in the entire NBA. But then, since Hartenstein's arrival, the Thunder improved to having the 18th best rebounding rate in the league over the span of the 3 games he's played so far. Well, obviously, you can't replace someone like Chet Holmgren, who at 7'1" just checks so many boxes for the Thunder as a floor-spacing big, as an elite rim protector, and as an emerging complementary shot creator off the bounce. But so far, Hartenstein, as the Thunder's sole big man on the floor, has been making such a huge impact on OKC's play on both ends, despite him not being an outside shooting big, and despite him not being as elite of a shot blocker as Holmgren. Hartenstein's put up 3 straight double-doubles since he took the court this season, and the Thunder's net rating shows a 14-point differential with Hartenstein on the floor as opposed to when he is on the bench. It's based on a small sample size, but that difference is actually the 2nd largest produced by any Thunder player so far, only behind that of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's dive into how Isaiah Hartenstein's versatile skill set is impacting OKC's play as their sole big man, and why I think he would still be able to thrive in double big lineups once Chet Holmgren comes back. So let's get to it. During the 2nd round of the 2024 playoffs against Dallas, a huge reason why the Thunder's offensive rating dropped by more than 6 points per 100 possessions compared to their regular season output was that OKC didn't have elite screeners who could create separation for Shai or J-Dub when they would try to open up driving lanes. Dallas simply switched everything to keep the ball in front of them, and as a result, OKC's offense stagnated. Now enter Isaiah Hartenstein, who with his 7'1", 250-pound frame is one of the best screeners in the entire league. And Hartenstein's excellent technique and feel when setting those screens is already helping OKC maximize the elite offensive shot creation of SGA and the off-the-bounce scoring of J-Dub. Currently, Hartenstein is averaging 6 screen assists per game for OKC, which is the 2nd most in the NBA, only behind Domantas Sabonis. And the 13.3 points per game that OKC scores out of those screens is also the 3rd highest mark in the league right now. In this possession, you can see Shai with the ball midcourt, and right there, Hartenstein sets the ball screen, which totally erases Keon Ellis from the picture. This allows Shai to attack the much lower Sabonis on the switch as Shai drives to the paint, creating separation with a sudden stop as he hits the easy 16-foot jumper. Again here, watch how Hartenstein sets the ball screen for Shai and how his wide body just pins Kuminga totally out of position. With Kuminga unable to recover, Shai's got a lot of room to get to his spot as he cooks Draymond Green with a mid-range pull-up. This time, coming from the top of the key, Hartenstein runs a side dribble handoff with Shai. Watch how he screens and then flips the angle of that screen to totally pin Shai's defender. Now Shai catches a bonus on an island who just gives him so much room to launch the step-back 3-pointer. Well, for sure, instead of allowing Shai or J-Dub to get switched to slower defenders, opposing teams could try and ice him in those ball screens to force them to give up the ball. But then the problem is, that now frees up Hartenstein on the lane and gives him a lot of space to score himself. In this possession, Hartenstein sets the ball screen, but then you can see Robert Williams icing Shai instead of playing on a drop. This allows Shai to set up Hartenstein on the roll. Hartenstein takes advantage of the smaller Delano Banton as he hits him with that slow step and soft touch around the basket. Again here, Hartenstein sets the high screen for Shai. Sabonis chooses to ice the play, allowing Hartenstein to slip right into the lane, and as he receives the rack from Shai, you can see how he makes Sabonis pay for his decision by easily launching that floater against a smaller defender from around 12 feet. Speaking of his mid-range floater, that shot has been a certified go-to move for Hartenstein so far in OKC. He's been shooting exactly 50% on those shots on 6 attempts per game, and the good thing about this is that he's not necessarily demanding the ball to get those shots off. One of Hartenstein's biggest strengths is his court mapping ability. He's constantly moving around to find open spaces on the floor to become an outlet for driving ball handlers, and this is where most of his floaters come from. Right here, OKC runs their usual scheme with Shai operating on one side of the floor with one teammate on the strong side corner, and you can see Hartenstein starting off by roaming around the weak side corner. Now, as Dort drives to the baseline, you can see Hartenstein immediately running to the paint ready to receive the dump off out of the double team as he just gets so much space to launch his floater. Then here, you can see Hartenstein in the middle of the paint against the Warriors zone. He clears up space in the lane for Isaiah Joe's drive, but as Joe runs out of space, Hartenstein just slips right by Pajemski here as he gets to his spot and drains another wide open floater. Within the span of the 3 games Hartenstein has played so far, OKC has averaged 56 points scored in the paint per game, which is the 6th most in the NBA. That is a meaningful increase from their 48.4 points scored in the paint average before Hartenstein's arrival. But then, Hartenstein's excellent court mapping is also displayed in his ability to play make and to find teammates, especially out of short roll situations. The Thunder's offense thrives with a lot of cutting and off-ball movement, and Hartenstein's ability to quickly read and react as a decision maker in this type of offense allows OKC to effectively use him as a connective passer. Right here, Hartenstein sets the ball screen for J-Dub, and on the short roll, with multiple bodies in the paint, he's quite unsure of making a pass at first, so he takes one extra dribble to draw the defense, which opens up the passing lane for him to find Alex Caruso right under the basket. Then here, off another ball screen for Shai, Hartenstein goes on a short roll. De'Aaron Fox bothers him from behind, but Hartenstein has already got the floor mapped out as he gets the ball out to J-Dub just in time as he cuts through the lane and finishes with a dunk. Well, with his brilliant playmaking ability, in the future, I expect OKC to use Hartenstein more as a dribble handoff hub in those types of off-ball screen delay actions they used to run. We've actually seen Mark Daigneault utilize J. Will in this kind of role last season as a decision maker out of delay actions, which really utilized his size and passing ability. And I think placing the ball in Hartenstein's hands a little bit more at the top of the key should also allow OKC to still run an essentially 5-out scheme despite him not being a floor spacing big man, by simply allowing Hartenstein to make decisions out of the movements around him, which is something he did a lot in New York. Although I really love that OKC is still able to maintain essentially 5-out spacing even with Hartenstein on the floor by using him in some spread pick and roll actions where he would start possessions from the perimeter. Right here, you see Hartenstein setting the high screen, and as Shai attacks the paint, you can see how well spread the floor is for the Thunder. Hartenstein is alone at the top of the key and he won't shoot a 3, but as soon as the double comes up on Shai, he runs to the lane and becomes an easy outlet pass target as he drains another floater. With Hartenstein's intersection of size, feel, and touch, you can just imagine him still thriving even as part of double big lineups with Chet Holmgren on the floor. And while I don't really see him spending a lot of time starting at the 5 with Chet at the 4, lineups with both big men should still really be a net positive for the Thunder. Obviously, with both Chet and Hartenstein on the floor, OKC can run a 4-out offense by putting Hartenstein around the dunker spot while Chet together with 3 other players are spacing the floor. OKC can also probably run some 5-slot offense where Shai or J-Dub plays pick and roll with Chet on one side of the floor while Hartenstein is stationed on the weak side where he can function as a cutter or as a connective passer out of secondary actions. OKC could just really get creative in those minutes they run their double big lineups. Although the scary part is, you can imagine that OKC didn't pursue Hartenstein mainly for his offensive value, but rather for what he brings on the defensive end as one of the most versatile defenders and one of the most hard-nosed rebounders in the entire league. Having him and Chet together on the floor gives OKC two 7-footers who they could play interchangeably on defense, as both are quick enough to play at the level of the screen on drop coverages, both have enough mobility to guard soft switches, and both are also more than capable of acting as the last line of defense as a roaming shot blocker around the basket. Against OKC's double big lineups, say a ball handler somehow gets past Hartenstein and Caruso in drop coverage, you still have Chet Holmgren to meet that player at the rim or vice versa. But then, of course, a huge reason the Thunder brought Hartenstein in is to allow OKC to hold up defensively in those minutes when Chet Holmgren is on the bench. Well, J-Dub playing center has been a cheat code and to an extent has allowed OKC to play an even more aggressive brand of defense, but the Thunder still obviously needed added size against much bigger lineups, and so far without Chet, Hartenstein has provided that size and has made his presence felt by basically doing everything, from switching to quicker ball handlers to disrupting the passing lanes up to being that last line of defense at the rim. Right now, the Thunder are allowing opponents to score 9.9 points less per 100 possessions when Hartenstein is on the floor, which is the biggest difference produced by any Thunder player on the defensive end for the season. Right here, you can see how well Hartenstein defends in drop coverage. He plays the space between the roll man and ball handler really well, and as Shaedon Sharpe attacks him on the lane, Hartenstein just straight up swipes the ball out of his hands as OKC gets the defensive stop. Then in this possession, as Shai loses the ball and as Golden State attacks in transition, you can see Hartenstein right at midcourt getting back on defense. He's right behind the 3-point line, but as he sees the ball about to go to Wiggins ahead of him, he flips his hip and just hustles to get the chase down block. What's really been eye-opening though for OKC is how Hartenstein's size has allowed them to close the gap on the rebounding end, and this is despite the Thunder still ranking dead last in the NBA overall in terms of rebounding percentage. After Chet Holmgren got hurt, OKC was out-rebounded by a whopping 65 total rebounds during the 5 games OKC played without a center in the lineup, but there's been some progress over their past 3 games since Hartenstein played. Well, Portland edged OKC out by only 3 rebounds, Golden State still out-rebounded them by 9, but then they out-rebounded Sacramento by 13. Those 3 teams aren't necessarily the biggest teams in the NBA, but without Hartenstein's rebounding output, the Thunder would have been out-rebounded by 37 in those 3 games. Overall, what we're seeing here is basically Isaiah Hartenstein just being both a defensive floor racer and an offensive game changer for the Thunder. The most important thing about his arrival though is that he's impacting the game so much without forcing OKC to change the way they're playing and without taking away the foundations that the team has built over the past 4 years on both ends of the floor. But do you guys believe that Isaiah Hartenstein's arrival would propel OKC back to the NBA Finals? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.